Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Now, we have Danny Jones with Bart Ehrman, biblical scholar Bart Ehrman, who in my last video I showed you has poor ancient Greek skills at best.
Drug drink.
Doesn't this say that he uses the word Christ?
No, it's using the word Creo.
Oh, for fuck's sake. You can have a look at that video. I'll put that link up here now. But what we're looking at today is Bart Ehrman talking about the Gospel of Mark in the New Testament. We're going to have a look and see if a biblical scholar knows what the Bible says. So we're going to look at what the biblical narrative is, what their language says, and what an ancient Greek lexicographer himself was determining what the language meant and what these words in context meant at the time he was writing all this down in the 5th, 6th century AD. All right, let's go.
When Jesus was arrested in the park.
Figure of the boy in the park is in Mark 14.
Yep.
And it's only in Mark. And it's a strange passage.
Here it is here. Mark 14, 51, 52 is in the corner in the English. So we're gonna go over that. We're gonna have a look at that and then contrast the ancient Greek original with the English translation. But I just want you to have a look here. So that's a leistes. That's what Jesus is saying. Hos epi leistein. So we're gonna look at what's a leistes, what does Bart say a leistes is, and what do the ancient Greeks say a leistes is.
And he's crucified. Who were the guys that were crucified on each side of him?
Now this next bit from Bart Ehrman is unacceptable as a biblical scholar if that is your job.
And he's crucified. Who were the guys that were crucified on each side of him? What were their charges?
We're not told in the New Testament.
We're not told in the New Testament. That's what his quote is. We're not told in the New Testament. I'm going to show you here. There are 3 separate Gospels in the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, and Luke. They all say that he was crucified with, here in Matthew 27:38, in the Greek it says duo leistai. 2 other leistai he was crucified with. And Jesus, I just showed you, he said, "Why have you come out against me as if I'm a leistes?"
We're not told in the New Testament.
Mark 15:27, duo leistas. The endings of the word, don't worry about that. It's just the way it's talking about it in the sentence. This one says duo leistai. Mark 15:27 says duo leistas. What did Bart say again?
We're not told in the New Testament.
Really, we're not told in the New Testament. I know we only said it once, but I'm doing this to highlight the point. 3 separate Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, say that he's crucified with either 2 leistai or 2 kakugoi. Now we're going to look at what these terms mean and who these people are. But let's see what Bart has to say about this.
I haven't really looked around to see what the consensus would be, but my suspicion is that they also were accused of some kind of insurrection.
You haven't looked around to see. This is your fucking job, man. You're a biblical scholar. You should know what the New Testament says. Why do I pull up the New Testament and tell you what the hell the book says? This is your job. Your job. You're not doing a very good one either. And we're supposed to trust these people to tell us what's in the Bible? Good God, this is awful. Awful. These standards for biblical scholars, I'm not even talking about in the Greek side. You don't even know what's in the book. You said, even in English, it says he's crucified with 2 thieves, which is a terrible translation. Terrible to say thieves in the English. It's not a thief. A thief is a kleptes in Greek, and it doesn't say kleptes. It says, you just saw it right there, leistai, leistas, kakuloi. And then he's claiming that even though he hasn't looked around, he's assuming that it's an insurrectionist.
To see what the consensus would be, but my suspicion is that they also were accused of some kind of insurrection.
What the consensus would be? Just look what the book says. You don't need a consensus argument to say, hey, what's the word the book says? That's ridiculous, because as I'll show you here, leistai and kakugoi is not the word for an insurrectionist in ancient Greek. This is the word for insurrectionist in ancient Greek. A seditionist insurrectionist. Stasiastes, one who stirs up sedition. And it says it right here in Mark 15:7. Mark 15:7, we're going to take a look at that. There was one called Barabbas, bound with those who made insurrection. Okay? Men who in the insurrection had committed murder. So he was bound with them. And it's claiming he was bound with those who had made insurrection. So that's the word for an insurrection, an insurrectionist. Stasiastes, or in this case, plural stasiaston. Not leistes or leistai. This is what Mark, whoever wrote Mark, is saying. Jesus claimed he wasn't a leistes, that's one word, and Barabbas was bound with stasiaston. 2 different words, 2 different meanings, all right?
A leistes, though, in Josephus, the Jewish historian Josephus, uses the term leistes to refer to guerrilla warriors, people engaged in guerrilla warfare.
Okay, let's take a look at that. Josephus, he'll say he's 1st century. However, the first Jewish-Roman war happened from 66 to 73, 74 CE AD. What year was Jesus crucified? Wasn't that around 30, 33 AD? So this is 33 plus years after Jesus died. So Bart is saying Josephus is claiming Laestes is one of these people who were revolting against the Romans, one of these first Jewish revolters against the Romans. I know it's the 1st century still, but Jesus died before these revolts happened. So how can Jesus be called a Laestes, who's an insurrectionist against the government, when it hadn't even happened yet, when Josephus was talking about it? Because his book, written 75 AD. Now, the very weird thing about this is more evidence that they don't have any evidence of Aramaic or Hebrew, but they do have the Greek. But these people, whoever's on Wikipedia, they want to say the book was written about 75 AD, originally in Josephus's paternal tongue, either Aramaic or Hebrew. Well, we don't have any evidence of that, do we? No, this version has not survived. It was later translated into Greek. You see that? They're playing you again. Fucking playing you again. It was later translated into Greek, probably under the supervision of Josephus himself. If it was under the supervision of Josephus, why the fuck wouldn't he just write it in Greek? Booth and Pierce wrote, the current Greek edition does not appear to be a translation. Oh, there we go. Must be considered a new edition. So it's its own thing. It's not a translation. These people are even saying it's not a translation. A complete reworking of the first writing and likely a considerable expansion. Or it's an ancient Greek original because ancient Greek makes sense and the Aramaic and the Hebrew doesn't exist. This whole narrative to cover your eyes from the truth. Don't believe your lying eyes. The Aramaic and Hebrew doesn't exist. And they're saying he probably wrote it himself or translated it himself. To me, that speaks of he wrote the damn book himself in Greek. And we're going to have a look. Because
he's our main source for information about first century Judaism.
So he's our main source, he says, for first century Judaism. But he's writing this book from 75 AD about the wars against the Romans from the Jewish revolt after Jesus' death. After Jesus' death, okay? So Jesus can't be saying, I'm a Laestes, I'm an insurrectionist, in this case, because he's already dead.
And by the way, it doesn't say much about drugs.
Doesn't say much about drugs, but it does talk about drugs, doesn't it, Bart? If you want to go to Josephus, it does talk about drugs, because right here, TLG, pharmakon mete thanasimon, drugs, death-inducing drugs. Neither the drugs nor the death inducers will hurt you. Funny thing that Jesus also said that in Mark 16:18. Lift up snakes and you'll drink thanasimon and it won't hurt you. Interesting that they're talking about the same thing. Pharmakon thanasimon. Josephus talking about drugs, where Bart says he doesn't say much of, but right here, I found it. Pharmakon thanasimon, talking about drugs. Same thing Jesus said in Mark 16:18. Thanasimon. So now you know what he's talking about. A death-inducing drug. Drugged drink.
You can't trust a dictionary of biblical Greek to understand Greek more broadly.
Okay, good idea. So let's take a look at Hesychius and see how he's identifying words in the 5th, 6th century to see what these words actually mean and if Bart is actually telling us the truth. So here we have Hesychius, leistai. Is it equal to peiratai? Now, if you don't see pirate in this word, I don't know what's wrong with you. Now we go peirata, peirata, peiratai, kakugoi. Oh, that's the word we just saw, isn't it? Kakugoi. He was crucified with 2 kakurgoi. And the other one said 2 leistai. So a peiratai is equal to a kakugoi and a leistai. That's what we're talking about. Now what's a peirates? A pirate. One who makes attempts or attacks on ships. This is the lexicon. And in earlier Greek, it was a leistes. Now we're going to keep looking because kakurgia means the character and conduct of a kakurgos, which is to be ill-doing, do wickedness and villainy and malicious shit. Alright? That's a kakurgia. To kakurgeo is to be a kakurgos, to do evil, work wickedness. Alright? These are the people that Jesus is crucified with. Doesn't sound like insurrectionists, does it? Sounds like people who do really fucked up shit.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It does occur there. But what's it got to do with the kid?
Well, what it has to do with the child, the little Neoniskos, as we'll look at, Kentaro is also identified as by Hesychius as equal to leistai and of paiderastai. Right here, second line, paiderastai, Kentaroi, leistai, and of paiderastai. Now, I think you can deduce what that is, but let's take a look at the lexicon. Kentauros, savage race, monsters, half man, half horse, constellation, And number 4 here, Roman numeral 4, paiderastes, from the brutal sensuality ascribed to the centaurs. Hesychius, there we go. Now, what does that mean? Paiderastes, right there, you know what we're talking about with this definition. So Hesychius is saying all these things are equal. Leistai, kentauroi, peirate, paiderastes. Now, Jesus is saying he's not a leistai. Now, contextually, we have a leistai around the same time, which is Alexander the False Prophet by Lucian. And he does some really nasty shit, and he's got some little kids with him. So we have a contextual case of what it is at the time.
Does it occur? What does the passage say?
Mark 14:48. Jesus answered and said to him, have you come upon me as a leistes?
There we go. Jesus. Ie. Don't forget ie. What does ie mean? Yeah. Physician, healer, medical, epithet of Apollo. Now, this is why they want to make it into an insurrectionist, because it makes it seem like, okay, we need to come out after him with all these heavy weapons because he's an insurrectionist. That makes sense. It also makes sense if he is a leistai, a paiderastes. Why do you think they're coming out after him with all these heavy weapons? Because it says right here, kai neaniskos tis sunekoluthe autoi peribiblemenos sentona epicumno. And we'll see what neaniskos is, according to Hesychius. And then it says, he left the bandage behind, kata lipon ten sindona, the linen bandage upon his nakedness. He left it behind and fled naked. That's what happened. There was a little boy who was with Jesus when these guys came to arrest him, and he dropped the bandage and fled naked, okay? It was a bandage upon his nakedness. What would make you naked in those times? I would take that to mean your genitalia is showing. So a linen bandage on your nakedness, okay.
With swords, in order to arrest me.
Right. So, like,
Swords
out
and
of all the
clubs to arrest
definitions
me.
we have, obviously he's not saying, why are you pulling up at me like I'm a pirate?
Although I just showed you the definition can be a pirate, but contextually, what are we talking about? We're talking about someone who was arrested with a naked boy. I think that would associate more with a paiderastes than a pirate.
It's talking about being an insurrectionist.
An insurrectionist.
Yeah.
Look at this dude. Look how he doesn't believe what he's saying. He's looking down, not looking down in the eye. He's, it's an insurrectionist. Yeah, that's the narrative I'm going to go with. I'm going to straight up lie to you right now, and I'm not even believing the lie myself. He can't even look straight up and say, yeah, it's an insurrectionist. I believe that. This guy doesn't even believe what he's saying, based on his body language.
Talking about being an insurrectionist.
An insurrectionist.
Yeah.
Look at the long pause after that too. Yeah. Please don't bring up any follow-up questions because I'm not prepared for it. It just makes no sense because, as I showed you, Barabbas stasiaston, with a stasiaston. So that is the word for an insurrection or a sedition. Stasiaston, that's in the plural. That's what they're saying Barabbas was with in Mark. Now let's look at the interlinear in Mark 15:7 because it says Barabbas was with the rebels. So we say stasiastes, rebels. Stase, insurrection. See, even the interlinear says the stase are insurrectionists.
Why else would soldiers come after him?
Why else would soldiers come after him? All right, maybe because I just showed you that he was arrested with a naked boy, and leistai can equate to, you know what? I'm showing you. These are not the same words. These are not the same definitions in ancient Greek, all right? Peirates. Nowhere does Hesychius say, nowhere does anyone say in the lexicon, astasiastes, a seditionist, rebel, is a peirates or a kakurgoi. Nowhere do they connect those two words in ancient Greek. Nowhere. Only in the biblical narrative that these people, these scholars want to push. You know what's hilarious? You see this J-A-J down here? That's Josephus, the Antiquities of the Jews. And I'm going to pull it up for you right now. So Josephus even says Astasiastes is a seditionist. Stasiastes, and this is it. 1413. He was a seditious man. So even Josephus is saying Stasiastes is a seditionist in his own writings on the Jews.
You don't send a band of soldiers after somebody's stolen a loaf of bread.
Right?
What are you fucking talking about? Who's stolen a loaf of bread? Where the fuck are you getting that from? The dude's arrested with a naked boy. What? A loaf of bread? Why would you even say that? That's just stupid. Say what the truth is. Why are they coming out after him like he's with a naked boy, doing bad things, getting crucified with wicked people? Is what the language says.
Why are you coming up at me like I'm a leistes?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, gang, Danny. Nice.
I'm not sure what the kid has to do with that.
Already showed you. Here it is, sunakalutheo. This is the verb for what the kid was doing. Following along with or closely accompanying. This is the LSJ lexicon, but I'm going to show you the New Testament lexicon, the ancient Greek New Testament lexicon, where they highlight and point out a lot of verses where all these words are used. Now here it is. What's a neoniskos? Neoniskos is diminutive, so it makes it smaller. A young man, that's always the same one. A youth. Just think youth, so think maybe up to 12, 13 maybe early teens. A young man or a youth. So whatever you think youth can go up to. So bottom right, this is what I want to look at. In the New Testament lexicon of ancient Greek, it says neoniskos is used in Mark 14:51. That's what we're talking about. Used of a young attendant or servant. Now in our modern parlance, what is an attendant or a servant? You would call that a slave, wouldn't you? And I'm going to show you how, because right here it says paidiske. And we're going to look at what that is and what it's referencing and how this is going to change your whole reality if you've never seen this before. A paidiske is a feminine version of paidiskos, a young boy or slave. Okay? Slave. Si neoniskos. Says it right here. Si neoniskos. Now it says young girl damsel. That's how they're trying to do it in their English. Damsel. Maid servant. Young female slave. So these girls are underage female slaves. That's what a paidiske is, and it's saying si neoniskos, and the masculine paidiskos, young boy or slave. So now we can attribute slave to the neoniskos because under the term servant, which in our parlance is slave, Jesus was with an underage or young boy slave who was attending to him like a servant or a slave would. That's according to the New Testament lexicon of ancient Greek, okay? Now Bart's going to go on with the rest of the passage and we're going to absolutely tear him to shreds.
So the kid is only in Mark, but it's a strange story because it's this, they try and grab the guy.
See how they're trying to pass it off? They're saying guy, grab the guy, to make you think he's older than what he is. Now, is this deliberate or is this just terrible training? Like he doesn't know what this is. Like he's never looked at this before. I'd like to think it's the latter, that he's just poor training and he doesn't know these things. You make up your own mind on that one. But anyway, we're going to look further on and see neoniskos, as we've looked at, neoniskos equals anapios, according to Hesychius right here. Now, what is anapios? Anapios, according to the Greek lexicon of the New Testament, is an infant or a little child, okay? A minor, not of age. And then on the LSJ, it says an infant, child, a child from infancy, and of children up to puberty. See, when they say youth, that's what they're talking about. Yeah, up to puberty. According to Hesychius, nepios and neoniskos, they equate. And he's talking about of children up to puberty or an infant or a child from infancy. All right? That's the age range we're talking about, this neoniskos. It's not a guy, okay? As Bart was saying.
They pull his towel off.
He's a young man. It's not, no, he's wearing a linen cloth. He's wearing like a robe or something.
Or something. He's wearing a robe or something. See, they turned it into a robe. Like if you read the new translations, I think it's all a New Living one or whatever it's called. They say robe. He was wearing a robe. I'm like, that's not what the original text says. And Danny, fucking legend, calls him on it.
And they grab him and it says he's wearing a linen robe over his nakedness. They grab for him. They only
get the word for it again? Sindon.
Yeah, nice, Danny. Fine cloth, usually linen. As we've seen before, businos, it goes down to the purple and it gets into the cult stuff, but I'm not going to go there in this video. So he's wearing a sindon, a fine cloth around his nakedness, okay? It's not a robe.
Yeah, okay, good enough.
What do you mean good enough? Danny got it fucking right. You didn't even know what the word was.
So they grab it and he runs away buck naked.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. It's Mark 14:62.
Look, normally I wouldn't pull people up for pulling the wrong verse, but you're a biblical scholar. So you should know what the verse is and what it says. Otherwise, how can we trust you at all? And by this video, I can't trust you one bit.
And so the question is, what in the world is that all about?
Yeah, what is that all about? I'm not a laestace while he's being arrested and a naked boy from like child to puberty, according to the language, is with him. And he's got a linen bandage around his nakedness. Okay? This is Jesus. This is the Bible. Mark 14:51-52. And you think, how did we not see this? Because we didn't read the original. It says young man. That's so vague. Now we're going to have a look at Mark 14:66 56 through to 70, because it says right here, pai diskon, you can see that there are multiple underage female prostitutes. Okay, female slaves. That's what it says here. Pai diske, a young girl, maiden, and that's how they translate it in English, a maiden. So it throws you off the scent, maiden. Or 2, a young female slave, especially a prostitute. Underage female prostitutes, that's what we're talking about. And underage male prostitutes, boys, neiniskos. So there's 2 of them right here to identify Peter, Petron, who identify Peter as being with the Nazarene, Yesu. And then it references another paidiske down here, identifies as you're the one that was with Jesus. In the English it says this is one of them. So Peter is being identified by multiple underage female prostitutes as being one of Jesus's boys. And then he denies it. This whole deny me, you're going to deny me 3 times. This is where that happens. Now, there are 2 choices you have here. Either Peter is a man in his middle ages or 30s and 40s or even 50s, depending on what narrative you want to go with. If you want to go by what Da Vinci looks like when they're all old bearded men. You either have that, and there are underage female prostitutes who are identifying Peter. Why would they know who he is and be able to identify him unless he has had dealings with them before? Or Peter is only like an older teenager, or I think maybe pushing 20 or something. So you have either he's an old man and he's identified by 2 underage female prostitutes, or he's younger, he's in his teens, maybe 20, and he's identified by underage female prostitutes. Either way you slice it, it's not a good look. Why are these people dealing with underage prostitutes or being identified by underage prostitutes? What the hell's going on? Why is this happening? Either way you slice it, the reality is that they were dealing with prostitutes who are underage. Okay? This is the text. And then the way we all read it today in its English translation, 100% it is a fairy tale because the English takes you away from the reality by saying maiden. And then we go to medieval, a handmaiden of the castle or some shit. Like, no, it says paidiskon, multiple underage female prostitutes. Why the hell are they able to identify Jesus and Jesus's boys? One of Jesus's boys, Peter. Now let's go to the resurrection and see what Bart has to say about that.
Because in Mark's gospel in particular, Jesus is raised from the dead and his tomb is empty.
His tomb is empty. Did you hear that? His tomb is empty. Okay, remember that. His tomb is empty. Mark 16:5. There was a neaniskon, another little boy in the tomb who was dressed, clothed with a stolane, which is like a robe garment, leokane, a white robe. He said the tomb was empty, but there is a neaniskon in the tomb. All right. So in the English, who will roll away the stone from the door? Entering into the tomb, they saw a young man, neaniskos, sitting on the right side, dressed in a white robe, and they were amazed. So they had to roll the stone from the door away from the tomb, which means the kid was already in the tomb because it says they were amazed. So the kid was already in the tomb with Jesus, or in the tomb before Jesus left. So the whole narrative that, the tomb was empty, there was a little kid in there, a little boy, young man, dressed in a white robe. So Bart, on how many different accounts now did we see him get the New Testament wrong? Yeah, I'd be scratching my head too if I was him, if I claimed to know the Bible and didn't know what the hell I was talking about and said things that were just untrue. Who he was crucified with, the little boy he was with, not a guy, what he was wearing, the ancient Greek words for what he was wearing. Even Danny remembered. I don't know what else I can do but to show you that these biblical scholars who claim to know and profess knowledge of the Bible, at least this one and another one I've shown, they don't know what they're talking about. How the hell are we going to trust them if they're the ones guarding these texts to present it as if it's history to us? As if this story is true, when they don't even know the original and they don't even know what's in the text. Even their English text, they don't even know. That's why I'm showing you. You can do it for yourself. We don't need these people. We've been running around listening to their bullshit for years now, decades, maybe centuries. Not anymore. Do the work for yourself. Just put this out there and show them, hey, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This is what the Bible actually says. This is what the ancient Greek language actually says. So everyone who's been held back by these scholars who don't even know what they're talking about, take it upon yourselves, take the text, take these clips, take whatever you need, go out there and show people the reality and what the actual texts say.